So I'm going to do the opening prayer. I want to set a little, you saw the quote that I sent to you. So on my first hike when I was in Colorado, um, I hiked up to a high point with a view of the mountains and canyons and rock faces. And there was a bench up there. And the bench was a memorial bench to, I guess, a man who had been a paleontology professor. And I read this quote, and it struck me really deeply as a beautiful statement. So I'm going to start with that, and then I'll do the opening blessing based on that. And the quote is, "In the presence of eternity, the mountain is as transient as the cloud. In the presence of eternity, the mountain is as transient as a cloud. In the presence of eternity, how insignificant we all are and all things are. How insignificant am I? May our insignificance bring us joy and equanimity. In the presence of eternity, no past, no future, just presence. May this eternal presence bring us to truth. And with truth, may we all be filled with compassion and purpose."
Thank you, Bruce. Let's meditate. Inhale and exhale through your nose. If you like, give yourself a good stretch as if you're waking up. Inhale and stretch. Exhale and relax. Inhale and stretch. Exhale and relax. Bit by bit, make your stretching smaller and start to settle into your meditation posture. Bring your attention to any stress or emotional tension on the inhale. See it clearly in your awareness. And on the exhale, let those tensions fall away. Inhale. See those tensions clearly. And on the exhale, allow them to fall away. Focus on your breath. As usual, if you notice your attention is strayed, just gently bring your attention back to the breath. Now, imagine you're inhaling through the top of your head. And imagine you're exhaling out the bottom of your feet. Now imagine you're inhaling through the right side of your body. And imagine you're exhaling out the left side of your body. Now imagine you're inhaling from the left side of your body and exhaling out the right side of the body. Now imagine you're inhaling through the back of the body and you're exhaling out the front of the body. Now imagine you're inhaling through the front of the body and exhaling out the back of the body. Now inhale through the whole body and exhale out of the whole body. Inhale and exhale evenly across the whole of the body, as if your body is transparent. Now just allow the breath to continue on its own. Allow the mind and the attention to do what it will. Just relax and allow everything to take care of itself. As we conclude the meditation, don't rush. If you've experienced any measure of peace, make note of it and how you got there. And just allow consciousness to ease smoothly back into engaging with the world.
Thank you for the meditation. Um, the topic tonight is checkmating the mind. And is Dave here?
Yeah.
Ah, yes. I think that that was a comment that you made yesterday or last month rather, and I really appreciate it. Just feels like yesterday. I just really appreciated it. And Matthew and I decided to go with that and see where it leads us. Um, because we all use our mind to try to figure things out. Uh, and sometimes our mind can be helpful, and sometimes it can be unhelpful, worthless. I don't know. Um, so the question is, was we asked was, um, is the mind helpful or is it an obstacle to peace of mind? So the first question we threw out there was, what difficulties do you have with your mind? We tend to rely on our mind to solve problems. Does this work for you in your practice or your meditation?
Could I ask a question before we try to answer that?
Absolutely, Larry.
So, do you define mind as thoughts or mind separate from thoughts?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking the group.
So Matthew and I are not going to answer these questions. We wanted this to lead to a discussion. I would block Matthew if he tried to answer that. So does anyone have thoughts about that? Larry, what are your thoughts?
I would think that for me, I would define them as similar. And so, because the concept of the mind, if you don't attach it to thoughts, is too like amorphous for me. So, so for me, it's like, okay, my mind is my thoughts, but I know we each have like 60,000 thoughts a day. And so it's just like, okay, so that's how I view it. But, I'm open to viewing it differently.
Anyone else have thoughts about what their definition or experience of the mind is?
To me, mind is your egoistic self, the self you identify as being in the everyday, day-to-day life you live.
Thank you.
That I see that too. And initially I was thinking, well, maybe the mind is like the ocean and the thoughts are more like the waves that come and pound us. And then, but in the mind, there's also that depth of the ocean where when we meditate or we're in tune with nature, that um, there's a deeper place. So it's more than the thoughts.
I think I separate out my mind from consciousness. When I think about mind and I think about consciousness, um, I think I can be conscious without my mind. My mind is functioning. My mind goes into the past and analyzes the past and projects into the future. It serves a purpose. It's planning out my future to what? Keep me safe, satisfy my desires. For me, I no longer have an antagonistic relationship with my mind, as the title that you proposed, which was checkmating the mind. To me, obviously checkmating is the game of chess, and in chess there's two opponents. I don't have that opponent relationship with my mind anymore. I have come to accept that my mind functions in this duality that we live in. Therefore, it's giving judgments all the time on everything, and I no longer is like, okay, I can see the judgments. I don't have to attach to them anymore. Well, a lot of times I do. And then I have to get some distance. So anyway, back to my original thing was mind and consciousness. So that would be.
I'm going to follow up on that. Yeah, I hear this term subconscious mind all the time, but I feel like my mind is subconscious. It's just always going, always running, always positioning. Like you said, past, future. I think I had mentioned with Matthew when I met him, there's this voice that'll come in, in meditation or, in a deeper place, and it will say like, what's beyond that or what's underneath that, or, but when I examine that, it still is my mind. Like it's interesting. It's like pointing to something, but it's still my mind pointing to something. So it's, I'm actually at a very irritated place right now with my mind because I realize, or that thinking is not going to get me anywhere. It's just more structure. It's still just structuring or creating something that is like a barrier to consciousness. And so, I'm trying to think my way there and understand and grasp and collect information. And I just there's not much more. I don't know what else there is to understand, but it's like I'm just keep recycling the same kind of understanding in books and knowledge and spirituality. And now I'm just like, I just want to hit pause. So anyways, that's where I'm at with my mind.
I was thanks for all the sharings, and I was thinking about this idea of this checkmating the mind, and I guess why that resonated with me when I heard Ajahn Shanti, his teacher, use that term as a metaphor, was kind of this idea that in this checkmate idea for me was like the mind is always trying to label things and figure things out. And at this checkmate place, it has nowhere to go. So maybe I didn't look at it, and that's interesting to look at it kind of at this kind of oppositional opponent with the mind. It was more just like there's no more figuring out. There's nothing to figure out. There's like this stillness, and that makes sense to me in these times, these glimpses that we have sometimes of where there's no separation.
So when I read the questions, I asked myself the same question. What are they understanding in my mind when they ask? Because to think of these questions, and I thought that because of the way the questions are posed, the understanding is a mind, is a rational mind, is a thinking mind. And I agree that the mind is almost everything. That the mind is creating the universe and things that I know more intellectually than in other ways. But that's what I understood about the questions, that they were assuming that they were coming from that place. An invitation to think about the thinking mind, the rational mind that we all have. And what I thought is, yeah, checkmating the mind, I suppose, is to silence it, is to use any means that we can use or that we don't use, but that happens, that will bring us to that part of the mind, at least the rational mind, to a place of silence. And I feel like somebody was saying, I feel exhausted of thinking too. And I really have no doubt that thinking will take me nowhere. Finally, I got there. That the only exit from the imaginary prison of that rational mind is that silence. And sometimes a shock in life can take us there. Sometimes meditation, I use sometimes drawing with the non-dominant hand, just because it put me on a different rhythm, sometimes quiets the mind. And there's something else I want to say. I can't remember right now. That, well, what I thought is that the rational mind sometimes have the ability to be helpful, just in the sense that it can, when it's discernment more than judgment, like something can say this way, but sometimes it has to be more intuitive, but sometimes it could be a discernment that could be helpful, that some way will not help us or is not appropriate. It's more like a feeling when we have that discernment than the mind judging. But sometimes I think the rational mind can also be helpful just in that aspect. But I'm not sure I'm explaining what I'm trying to say. In any case, thank you. And just by the way, that picture, Bruce, was just beautiful. I just watched it a minute ago. Just saw it. Thank you.
Matthew, quite an outstanding discussion, I think, there.
Yeah, maybe.
Larry, thanks for asking the question, Larry. It was very helpful.
Yeah, I think Larry's question actually is one of the premier questions whenever a topic like this comes up, or you wonder about the mind. Ask yourself, well, what is it? And this, just asking that question alone can bring some kind of clarification to your thoughts. But, you know, there are a lot of similarities in the thoughts that we have about what the mind is. We associate it with our thoughts or with the rational will or with the ego, the personality, with their self. You know, some people feel basically they are their mind. And the question I would ask is, whatever you think the mind is it always there? Because maybe it's nothing at all. And this idea of checkmating the mind is a way of disclosing that fact, that it isn't really anything at all. So whether or not you think it's an obstacle, or if you identify with it, and so on, my suggestion is always find out what it is. Really find out what it is. Don't trust your thoughts. Investigate what it is. And, I'll conclude with just a story, because it's a story I like a lot, and it's about the mind. That's a story about Bodhidharma, the first patriarch of Zen Buddhism. One of his students came to him and said, help me pacify my mind. Apparently he was pretty troubled by it. And Bodhidharma said, bring out this mind so I can look at it. And his student said, well, that's the thing. When I search for it, I don't find anything. And Bodhidharma said, there, it's pacified. So, my thoughts on that are, thoughts are not the problem. It can be helpful or clarifying to find a silence beyond thoughts. But thoughts themselves are not an obstacle. But, thinking that thoughts are an obstacle, or that they are your mind, and that your mind is causing you problems, that's a way of creating our own problems. Yeah, so I don't know, simplify. There's just thoughts, that's it. No mind, just thoughts.
So Matthew, I'm going to throw a question at you, because one thing that you talk about is to take any view or any concept and inquire and chase it until I think you checkmate it. Thank you for that term, Dave. When you realize that there are no answers.
Yes. Yeah, that's the other thing this whole checkmating the mind really reminds me of, and that is the Zen koan, which is basically an impossible problem. And so when the mind is set up against an impossible problem, it's inevitable that it will eventually be checkmated if you follow the game through to its natural conclusion. And so, I often describe this as like if you trace a thought, like if you're trying to figure something out, like what is my mind, for example, or what am I? If you're trying to figure something out with thoughts, you have one thought and that leads to another one and you're trying to fit them all together into a kind of conceptual view of how things are. If you follow any train of thought with determination to find an absolute answer, you will get to a point where you run out of thoughts. And you think, well, I don't know what the next step is. What is the next thought? How can I put this all together? What is the sort of the concluding thought? And my experience is that this always happens, no matter how elaborate or clever our thoughts are. If we follow them, we will get to a point where they all kind of end, and you can't go further than that, and you're still not satisfied. And so you're just there. And generally, what we do is we think, well, that didn't work. And we turn around and, as I describe it, go back into the mind. And we look for a different train of thoughts. We think that train of thoughts must be wrong. It didn't get me what I wanted, the answers that I wanted. So we think, well, it must be a different train of thoughts. And so we'll try again along some other route. Incidentally, we do this with our lives too, not just with our thoughts, but with our actual lives, looking for the train of the course of action that's going to make us happy, the decision that's going to make us happy, the situation that's going to make us happy. It's just like looking for the right train of thoughts that's going to get us the answer we want. And so, the advice I usually give is make note of this point when you reach the end of your thoughts. And instead of turning around and looking for a different train of thoughts, just take a few steps outward, metaphorically speaking, into that non-answer, that silence beyond all of your thoughts. And generally, when first encountering this silence beyond your thoughts, you might think, well, that's just nothing. That's not going to get me what I want either. But my advice is check it out. Spend some time in this nothing. Give it a chance.
Thank you, Matthew. I think that question led us through, and discussion led us through really the first question that I posed. So I'm going to go to the second one because Matthew was very excited about what people might say for this one. So I'm going to read it and then we can discuss it. If you find what you imagine or think you are looking for in your practice, what will it be? What difference will it make? And how will you be different? I'm going to read that again. If you find what you imagine or think you are looking for in your practice, what will it be? What difference will it make? How will you be different?
Okay, I'm gonna um any anything I think it will be won't be it. Like it couldn't be it. What was the last part?
How will it change you? What difference will it make? And how will you be different?
It's kind of a trick question, isn't it? I because anything I say about it is not going to be it, right? So I won't be different. I won't be anything, or I won't be improved. I won't be less than. I assume. I mean, this is conceptual, but just with the glimpses I've experienced, but it would be nothing. There would be nothing to hold on to grasp onto. I can't, I mean, it's a waste of time. This is why I'm irritated with my thinking. Anything I think about could not be it. I've thought about it all. I've tried it all. I've tried on all the hats. I've tried, it's not it. And there's not anything else I can do but watch my mind continue to try to figure it out. Like Matthew said, that's not a problem. Sometimes I make that a problem. Yeah, it's nothing.
Would there be thoughts?
This is conceptual, but like he said, yeah, thoughts aren't the problem, but I think there, I would assume, be thoughts. Okay, in my just again glimpses, thoughts. Are there thoughts? Yeah, but they're not. If they're appearing and they are, there's not an attachment. Like it's not. They're just like a car that drives by or a tree. They're just appearing.
Hmm.
I kind of went to, let's see, Annie, thank you. I wanted to, you really got me thinking. And then I went to feeling. I was saying, well, what do I want to feel like? Because I feel like, say, my brain, my thoughts just go around in circles. So, but when I feel with my body, and I'm thinking maybe I'm a kinesthetic learner and hands-on. And so when I feel more in my body and less here, it's like I feel like more like I look at trees, like those are, they're rooted, they're growing, they sway. They give me a lot of peace. So I think that's a feeling that I aspire to.
So Jess, is that overcoming your mind by being aware of your body and feeling?
Yeah, I think it sort of uses, that's what I saw in the beginning. I said, well, maybe the mind's like a portal, or a gateway, like it goes for me. And then, okay, I can say, oh, there I am. And then I just sink in. And then, yeah, I just feel more spaciousness, more alive when I'm, yeah, probably more tuned in with the body and breathing. That, you're right, words are, I don't think they're not coming, um, but my thoughts, yeah, they can, Bruce, you were very helpful when we were out here. We had a couple great talks about my anxious mind, my worries, and just kind of creating, thinking it's helping me to solve, but when I can kind of just be there and be more in my body, I feel more space.
Hmm.
Or hello everyone. It's my first time.
Hey,
Um
new person. What's your name?
you got I'm James.
Nice to meet you.
My name is James. I was
Welcome,
invited
James.
by Dennis. Yes, thank you, Dennis. How are you?
Thank you. Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful group. I did want to say in my practice of essentially loving kindness, the part of the question was, what are you looking for in your practice and what will it be? And it's when the opportunities come to exhibit kindness, to take that opportunity and just let it happen instead of being so wrapped up in my own mind and my own thoughts and thinking of this and that and I should have and why didn't I, all of BS. To be aware enough that I'm not the only guy walking around, not the only one with issues, not the only one who's talking in my mind. And when something does pop up and I can have an act of kindness or show love to somebody that I'm aware enough and able enough and have the mind enough to act upon it. And one small act of kindness is like throwing a pebble into the pond where it has emanating effects and it can actually move across the world. And so something that just, it can just be so simple. And somebody just actually not even just viewing that act of kindness can impact them. They're not even the recipient of it. And so that's my practice, and that's what it would look like. And that's the type of impact it would have on somebody else. And then for me, it would be a sense of happiness, you know, that my practice is paying off and emboldened me to continue on and get through all of this, the noise that we have on a day-to-day basis. We all have it. And yeah, so that's my input. Thank you very much.
James, thank you and welcome. I'm really glad you're here. That was beautiful. Thank you.
I think for me, an indication, I can't say if I found what I'm looking for, because I'm really not looking for anything. I already know I'm there, so I can't look for it. But I think one indication would be that I don't feel tension about anything. No tension ever again about anything.
Hmm.
I'll continue on that thought. To me, it's a freedom. I don't expect anything to really change. My mind can go about doing what it's doing. Life can mirror back whatever, we'll call it lessons that I need to learn. But there's this freedom to just, yeah, the angst of the moment, the angst of living, the emotional component, the thoughts that I think and then thus generate the emotions or vice versa, would just all be okay. I don't expect them to fall away, or they do fall away, but I think it was Annie that talked about attachment. Yeah, none of it. I just would not attach to anything. And from that place of non-attachment and I would absolutely silence, that stillness is all a part of it. Thus life would mirror back that, and whatever is, and it would be fine. Freedom.
I'm appreciating the explorations with the different terms that have so much commonality. And so one of the terms that kind of stays with me, well, it kind of revolves around the self. And so maybe this indication idea is that there's this everlasting realization that there's no one running the show, and there's nothing that is happening to an individual that is suffering. in a certain way. And so, of course, it's so hard to say in words, but I think that's when this idea of kind of checking into these glimpses, I think that's what has been there of this, just there's just nothing that's happening to a person, because all of the suffering is about things that are going to happen or have happened, or to this individual that's wrong or painful. And so I feel like that freedom, that's what the freedom is for me, that there's still all these things happening. There's thoughts, there's maybe pain on that certain level, but the fact that it's not happening to me, the little one or the little self, is how I would describe my expectations, or some indication and that kind of thing. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Dave. That was beautiful. Anyone else? I love this term glimpses, because it's so clear to me how many glimpses you all have had. And final opportunity for anyone.
I'll say something. I'm resonating a lot with what people have said. I was doing Qigong this morning. We do that on Tuesday and Thursday mornings near where I live. And the guy who was leading us today is not our normal teacher. And they share a common teacher, though. Their teacher is pretty high level guy, I guess. And so he often shares things that the usual guy doesn't. And he said something this morning that really struck me, that like we're doing these motions, and a lot of people are new, and so you're just trying to learn how you do the steps and what it looks like, and you don't overextend, and you like more physically like how you do these moves. But the whole point is to have the right intention, because it's the intention that brings about the inner change. It's not just doing these movements. And the way I took what I'm not conveying very well what he said, but basically what he meant was like, if you're trying to do the moves at a certain amount of like trying to get there, well, that's the energy you're going to generate. Like it'll be whatever you make it. So if you have a certain expectation, or you're doing a certain way, or you're impatient, or you're too stiff, or whatever, then that's what your Qigong will be. And the more relaxed you are, and the more spacious you are, and the more time you take, then that's what your Qigong will be, and that will be the result. And I was thinking of that as everyone was talking, because in terms of my own practice, I'm aware of this, discursive, discriminating, judging mind that's pretty much going all the time. And I'm trying to remember the context, but I've heard it said a number of times in at the Center for Sacred Sciences, only awakening can awaken. Nothing can bring you to awakening but awakening itself. And so I took that to mean that the more I can be more spacious, allow more spaciousness, allow less judgment, allow things to be as they are. A lot of people talked about this. Alan, you did a lot also. Then that's what will come. That's what will be there, because I'm being it, not because there's something I'm doing. It's like, that's what it is. Like I am that. So if I'm being more awake, then I'll be more awake. In a way, it gets really simple. And that movement towards simplicity, as Matt, as you mentioned it before, should be a really, easier one than it seems to be. I'll just say the mind sort of is too like busy doing something else to allow that just plain beingness to be there. So that's how I think about moving forward in my practice, and what it would look like is just a lot more being and allowing, and not getting somewhere, or even before they say, like, what's the word, the not a presumption, a paradigm. A paradigm is what you think before you think it. And I kind of like that sort of definition, because I think there's a lot of ways I think that I'm not intentionally doing that. I'm just set up to think that way. And so everything falls along into that existing sort of channel, or that existing, way of thinking or way of being. So that's, to me, what freedom feels more like, or if I could say this is the goal, is to find more and more space around my paradigms. I guess that's how I put it.
Matthew, what's your response to this amazing discussion?
It's an amazing discussion. So many wonderful answers. I don't even know what to add. But yeah, as I listen to everyone, I feel like one of the common underlying themes is peace. However you might interpret that, peace of mind, or happiness, or stability, or non-attachment, non-judgment, non-reactionary, freedom, and all these ideas. I feel that people are always looking for an underlying peace that they know is there. Because, as you all have, you've experienced it. That's why you can speak to it in some sense. We all have a kind of innate intuition of this underlying peace. That's why we're on a spiritual path to begin with, right? Why else would we do this? If not at some point we figured, this is crazy. How can I find peace or happiness? And so, whether we're looking for just the next step, or just a glimpse or an experience, or the ultimate reality, I feel like this peace is the underlying, pole star of our journey. And what I would like to suggest is that it's always there. Just below all of the things you think stand in the way, this peace is always present. Even in difficult circumstances, even in pain, even in suffering, even bad situations, good, everything, all moments, even in deep sleep, in waking life, in dreams, this underlying peace is always there. And so, like, whatever it is that you said, think that, like, this is how I think it will be, or whatever. Just ask yourself, is it not that way already somehow? Like, for example, if you say, like, there will be nothing to hold on to. Is there anything to hold on to now? And I really, in terms of practice, I really like what Mark said, by way of kind of summing up that, and you can see it in everything that everyone said. It's like, if we know that that peace is there, it's just a matter of being at peace. You know, if you are struggling with yourself or with, you think, something else, you know, why? I think, you know, I was thinking earlier today about the muddy water, you know, as an example of, you know, the obstacles, or of, as some people think, the mind, you know, and how we can think about that metaphor. And if you want the muddy water, if you want clear water, you know, you can think like in our lives, right? You start with a tank of clear water. And bit by bit, you know, silt and mud gets loaded into it, and the water becomes cloudier and cloudier and cloudier. And maybe also the temperature drops, it starts to freeze, you know, so then you just have this frozen tank of muddy water. So, you know, how to make this water clear? Well, it's got to melt for one thing, and you've got to just let it sit so everything settles. You know, nothing can be forced. When you realize nothing can be forced, then that's like checkmating the mind. See, what can you do then? What are you going to do? You can't make it happen. You can't create this peace. You can only realize that it's already there. So, you know, I don't think you guys even need advice, honestly. You know, you're all pointed in the right direction, or there already. You know, you could say, as people do, you are there already. It's just a matter of realizing it if you haven't realized it yet. And then that piece that is there will be, you know, fully known. And whatever else might arise isn't your problem anymore.
Thank you, Matthew. You got that, Jess? It's not your problem anymore. So we're pursuing the little mind here, recognizing that we've all touched big mind. And in this clarification, we all have ideas of why things happen. And the next question is, why do things happen the way they do? How do you explain what happens, or I think as Clara said, what appears? I'm not sure who used that term. How do you explain what happens or what appears to you?
Just for clarification, are we talking here about what happens to us in our life? Or are we just talking about in the world, things happening in the world of our perception, but not necessarily to us? If you might want to make the distinction, Matt's going to come around and smack us.
What's the difference is what I was going to say.
Yeah, what's the difference? But this is really looking maybe more at you. How do you explain your life where you are, what has happened, what is happening, what appears to you.
Look,
Luck? Good luck in a chaotic universe?
totally.
I'm with you, brother. Can you go a little deeper with that, Larry, or elongate it?
Let somebody else say something.
All
I
right.
think luck says it all.
I'm just the opposite. My belief is just the opposite. I think I, and thus we, create absolutely everything in our life. Absolutely. Now, I can't say that I understand the mechanics of why, like, I've heard, well, we come into this life with a set of experiences that we agree to have. Okay, true or not, I don't know. But it sure seems like I have a set of experiences, and if I don't have a realization from that experience, it happens again. And then again and again until some point where I say, okay, I've got an insight here. And then it doesn't matter if that happens anymore. And I see that as a pattern in my life. Totally. And I see that as a pattern in my children's lives, right? Because I have that view. And so I do, and then luck that Larry is talking about. That thing that you're calling luck, that the experience that you get that's really, really pleasurable, I believe that you created it, or if it was me, I created it. And for that experience. So yeah, that's why things, and then just to get back to reflect back to what Mark was saying, that yeah, when I get to this place of space, clarity, freedom, and then am using the words life mirroring back to me, because I don't no longer need those other experiences, I became this person, this not person, this, I have trouble with I, you, me, etc. things. I became this frequency, energy, where then this great space is created. And thus, I created it because it's mirroring back me.
I have to agree with Alan. I was just about to speak and Alan said everything I was about to say. That we are, creating this. All of my decisions have led me here, to everyone I've met, everything I've done, whether I like it or not. And if I don't like it, you got to figure out what kind of decisions are creating that situation and change them so we can stop this cycle doing the same thing every day, just like Alan had mentioned. And but it is nice knowing that there is luck out there, synchronicities, serendipity, and see those things, recognize them, give gratitude when they happen. And but yeah, we're creating this. This is all us. This is all you, Alan. You're doing this.
Thank you all for participating.
Yes. Thank you. Anytime. That's all I have.
I
I
can
don't have a lot I want to say about this, but I want to follow up on what Larry said briefly. The founder for the Center of Sacred Sciences, Joel, he said something I never heard. It was very interesting. He said, different cultures around the world have different impediments to awakening. and different belief systems. And even with that, he says one thing that everybody believes that's wrong, is that life is fair. He was saying there's no evidence for that anywhere, that life is fair. And I thought about it. I thought that's probably true. It's kind of like luck, how fair life is on the good or positive end. And this is, I'm just going to say, for me, that's something part of me rails against inside. And I think it's one of the reasons I can't just be more spacious, because I can't fucking stand the fact that life isn't fair. And I think I have a pretty damn good life relative to the kind of life that could be had here. And I understand that suffering is a springboard for awakening, and there's all kinds of ways to say why suffering is a good thing. But I think Larry was kind of right in a way, and I'm sorry for it.
I would add that, about suffering and life not being fair, Mark, I agree 100%. That's an easy stumble right there. But I would ask, like the movie, what if this is as good as it gets? And what if this is perfection?
I'm not going to. I don't know if you're asking me to respond. I'm not going to respond right now, but I appreciate that insight.
I wanted to say about that sometimes I think that what happens to us, I totally agree. I think it's Larry that was saying we create everything that happens. And sometimes I did have at some point almost like a violent realization of that. There was a time in which all the synchronicities were happening in my life, like one after the other, some unexplainably so. And at some point, I really went into a place in which I almost got scared, because I thought, this is all a creation of my mind. Everything is a montage, is unreal. And my mind is creating all these things to happen. Right now, I cannot always have that same awareness or feeling, but I do know a lot of the times I think what happens to us has no explanation, and that's not even necessary to have an explanation. It's a mystery. At some other moments, I'm convinced we are creating it. But what I know is that we are interpreting what happens all the time and giving it the meaning that it has, and that ultimately probably has no meaning at all. We assign a meaning to things. Somebody was talking about cultural things. Mark, I think, was saying something about the underlying conditioning that we all have to which our thoughts and interpretation will come from that kind of mold. I don't remember the other part of the question, but that's my belief, that why it happens, I don't know, but I also know that everything that happens to us can have a purpose. If we have been given everything the purpose of learning and observing mostly how our mind works, the purpose of ultimate freedom or the end of suffering, everything that happens to us, everything that we do will have that meaning. And that's what matters. Not so much what happens, but that it's used for that ultimate purpose. And maybe that's what it happens. Somebody else said, if I don't learn from an experience, it will come back. And it's so true. And I think the experience, even if you learn from it, may come back. The same type of experience, if it is kind of in your script to have it. But once you have learned from it or are free from it, you won't suffer. You won't. it's just gonna be a thing happening, and you will be in a state. I had it sometimes lately with physical pain, in a state of complete peace for long periods with intense pain. And ultimately, it doesn't matter what's happening. It doesn't matter if I'm in pain or if I'm out with my friends having fun, because there's that underlying peace and silence that is the most important thing, even more than, a lot more than what's happening. And in fact, the last time I had this experience a few weeks ago, I was asleep, and asleep was talking to God. And well, I had a vision in a dream or something, and I said, I was thinking about a song actually, that in a translation, the song will say, it's an old song, Latino song. It doesn't matter in which way, not how, not when, but all that matters is if I'm next to you. It's a love song. And of course I was thinking of God. And I woke up to the pain at that night a few weeks ago, and honestly, I was in bliss throughout, because my mind decided that the important thing was not what is going to happen, is how would I experience what was happening. And so it was one of the most beautiful experiences and glimpses, coming back to that I had lately. So I'm not sure I answered the question, but that's my thought about it.
Hey, thank you. Honestly, I have no freaking idea. It seems chaotic to me, honestly. Um, the way that things happen. I used to think that if I did all the right things, you know, all the good things, and good things would happen to me, but I could laugh at that now. That just doesn't seem to be how it works. I don't know. I mentioned like I've tried on all different hats, and I wonder if maybe like consciousness is just trying on different hats just for experiences, just discovering itself. Maybe I don't really know. You know, I'm curious to see what Matthew says about like the manifestation stuff. I used to do that and think, you know, we were creating. Sometimes I wonder if we're like how much choice do we actually really have? That's all. Thanks.
I'm going to just say one thing because I want to. And I'm not where I think that I call anything into my life. My experience, and it's not chaotic. There's some order to it somehow that I don't understand, but things just happen. And so I think someone said we give then meaning to it. But I watch and things happen, and then at least I say, I did that. I'm the cause of that. But when I look, I say that after it's happened, and it's like there's just this endless, eternal event going on that I'm a part of. And it's happening all around me, and it's happening to me. But I'm not sure that there's any Bruce that's doing anything except being a part of it. So I just wanted to say that, and then, you know, we're running out of time here, so let's give it to Matthew.
Again, so many good, diverse answers. I'll just tell you my brief answer is I have no idea to this question. How or why, what happens to you. And as soon as we try to come up with an idea, we start to create a view around that idea, a picture or a concept of how the world is, or how life is, or how consciousness is. And as soon as we create that view, we are trapped by it. And so to approach this question, the basic question is, how and why do things happen to me? And it's a good question, but, again, to angle things towards simplicity, to even approach this question, you would have to know, what is me? And you would have to know, what are things? And it so happens that, this is the very direction that the spiritual teachings tell us to investigate. Find out if things exist. Find out if you exist before you try to explain how or why things happen to you. Because the whole question may become moot if these concepts of things and me fall apart. So, here's one way to think about it, or one kind of inquiry to do, is the things that happen to us, or even the things that you observe happening in the world, can be, we think of them as events or happenings, right? And the question that I would ask is, do they have any beginning or end that isn't just mind created? In other words, do events even exist? Does anything independent exist? Does anything, as Buddhism says, does anything have independent existence? Be it an object, an entity, an event, an idea, a thought, or a thing, or a happening. Nothing has any real limit. And so from that perspective, there's really nothing to say about anything. And again, that silence beyond the mind is present now.
Well, I'm stunned by the wonders of this conversation.
Me as well.
It is. What did you say, Matthew?
I said, I am too. Wonderful, wonderful discourse.
Yeah, I heard and learned so much. It was just, this experiment was worthwhile, Matthew.
Yeah. Yeah. Bruce and I were talking about how, trying to experiment with different things. This was a good one. Really good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom with all of you. So I just want to really thank you all for sharing and being present on this glorious summer day. And we'll meet again in August, the fourth Thursday in August. And we close with just a brief blessing. So may all of us see through our mind, our little mind, into big mind, into peace, into freedom, into the silence. And may we rest there. May we rest there in the nothing that it is, the comfort of the nothingness. And may each of us in the next month explore that underlying, what Matthew calls the underlying truth of reality, that is fundamental to all things. Because there are no things, there's just that. So blessings to you all. Thank you so, so much. A wonderful, wonderful discussion. And Larry, thanks for kicking off the first question.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you,
Great
Bruce and Matthew.
Great hearing from everybody.
Yeah, really good hearing from everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.